They left me for dead, then my last decision destroyed their plans. The last thing I remember before they drove away was my sister screaming, "We can't stay here." I was lying on the kitchen floor, barely able to breathe. My husband was standing beside her. He looked at me for 3 seconds. Then he picked up his bag. "I'm sorry," he said. And they left me there. What they didn't know was that I wasn't going to die that night. And before sunrise, I would make one decision that would destroy everything they had been planning behind my back. My name is Emily. And 6 months earlier, I thought I had the perfect life. I was 34, married to Daniel for almost 8 years, and we had a beautiful little house outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Daniel worked in real estate. I managed a small interior design business from home. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back, there were signs everywhere. Daniel started coming home late. He suddenly became protective of his phone. He changed his password. And whenever I asked what was wrong, he'd smile and say, "Work is stressful, that's all." Then my younger sister, Rachel, started spending a lot of time around him. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Rachel was going through a rough divorce, and Daniel insisted we should help her. He'd drive her places, help her with paperwork. Sometimes they'd have coffee together while I was working. I trusted both of them. That was my mistake. One Friday evening, I walked into the kitchen and saw Daniel quickly putting his phone face down. Rachel was sitting across from him. They both went silent. I laughed awkwardly. "Okay, what did I just interrupt?" Daniel stood up. "Nothing." Rachel smiled. But neither of them looked at me. That night I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. So I started paying attention. And eventually, I found the truth. It wasn't just an affair. Daniel and Rachel had been seeing each other for months. But the affair wasn't even the worst part. They were planning to take my house. And my business. I discovered it completely by accident. Daniel had left his laptop open. On the screen was an email from a lawyer. The subject line said, "Transfer of assets after Emily's death." My heart stopped. I read the email twice. Then 3 times. Daniel had apparently taken out a large life insurance policy on me. Rachel was listed as the beneficiary. And they had been discussing how to make my death look accidental. I felt sick. I wanted to confront them immediately. But then I realized something. They didn't know I knew. So I stayed quiet. For the next 3 weeks, I pretended everything was normal. I kissed Daniel goodbye every morning. I smiled at Rachel. I even pretended I hadn't noticed the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. Meanwhile, I quietly started protecting myself. I copied financial documents, changed important passwords, moved my business accounts, and contacted a lawyer. But before I could finish everything, Daniel discovered that I'd been investigating. And that's when everything changed. One Saturday night, Daniel suggested we go to my sister's house for dinner. I almost refused. But I wanted to see what they would do. So I went. Dinner was strangely quiet. Rachel barely spoke. Daniel kept checking his watch. Then around 10:30, he stood up. "Emily, we should talk." I looked at him. "About what?" He glanced at Rachel. Then back at me. "I think you should sit down." I smiled. "I'm already sitting." His face became serious. "There has been an accident." My stomach tightened. What accident? Rachel suddenly began crying. Daniel said, You took some medication earlier, didn't you? I stared at him. No. He looked confused. Then angry. You're sure? Yes. That's when I knew. Whatever they had planned for me that night had failed. Daniel suddenly grabbed my arm. Emily, just cooperate. I pulled away. What are you talking about? Rachel stood up. You weren't supposed to wake up. Silence. She immediately covered her mouth. Daniel looked at her in horror. But it was too late. I heard everything. They had drugged my drink. They expected me to become unconscious. Then they planned to call emergency services and claim I'd accidentally overdosed. But something had gone wrong. I hadn't finished the drink. I'd left it in the kitchen. Daniel panicked. And Rachel panicked even more. Then Daniel did something I never expected. He grabbed my purse. We're leaving. I tried to stop him. He shoved me. I fell backward and hit the edge of the kitchen counter. For a moment, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was on the floor. Rachel was standing over me. Daniel was holding the door. Daniel, I whispered. He looked at me. There was no love in his eyes anymore. Only fear. We can't stay, he said. Then they walked out. They left me on the floor. Alone. Bleeding. Barely conscious. And they believed I would die before anyone found me. But they were wrong. Because there was one thing they didn't know. I had already sent the evidence to someone I trusted. My lawyer. And I had scheduled the message to send automatically if I didn't cancel it before midnight. I couldn't reach my phone. I couldn't move. But I could hear the clock. 11:47. I had 13 minutes. I dragged myself across the floor. My hand finally reached the kitchen counter. I pulled myself up. Then I crawled toward my phone. 11:53. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. I opened the message. There were 3 words waiting on the screen. Are you safe? I typed one sentence. No, start everything. Then I pressed send. At midnight, my lawyer received every document. The emails. The insurance policy. The financial records. The messages between Daniel and Rachel. And one final file. My last decision. Months earlier, Daniel had convinced me to make him a partner in my company. But I had never transferred ownership. I had created a separate legal agreement. If Daniel was ever found to have intentionally harmed me, his ownership rights would automatically disappear. And there was another clause. If I died under suspicious circumstances, the company would be placed into an independent trust until the investigation was completed. Daniel had been planning to inherit everything. Instead, he had just lost access to all of it. By 12:30 a.m., the police were at my house. Daniel and Rachel were arrested before they could leave the state. The investigation lasted months. And eventually, the truth came out. Their affair was exposed. Their financial plans were exposed. And their attempt to murder me was exposed. But the strangest part came later. Daniel asked to see me. I agreed. Not because I wanted him back. I wanted to hear one thing. Why? He sat across from me in a small interview room. He looked completely different. Tired. Older. Broken. I loved you, he said. I stared at him. No, Daniel. He looked down. You loved what you thought you could get from me. He didn't answer. I continued. You didn't leave me for Rachel. His eyes lifted. You left me for money. That was the first time I saw him cry. But I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just relief. Because the woman they had left for dead wasn't the same woman sitting across from him. The old Emily trusted everyone. The new Emily trusted evidence. The old Emily believed love meant forgiveness. The new Emily understood that forgiveness didn't require giving someone another opportunity to destroy you. Daniel and Rachel eventually faced prison time. The house was sold. The debts were settled. And my company survived. But I never kept the money for myself. I created a small fund for women trying to escape abusive relationships and rebuild their lives. Because I learned something that night. Sometimes the people trying to destroy you don't realize you're already preparing to survive them. And sometimes your final decision isn't about revenge. It's about making sure they never get another chance. Daniel thought leaving me on that kitchen floor was the end of my story. It wasn't. It was the moment I finally stopped being afraid of losing him. And that was the one thing he could never take from me. My life, my freedom, and my decision to walk away. Because they left me for dead. But I lived. And when I did, I took everything they thought they were going to have with me.